Divorce, hey, we know it happens. It happens very commonly. Well, that's what this week's case deals with. Divorce that was taking place in Georgia involving a couple, Walter and Cindy Radford. Well, they went forward, they had a divorce, and at the termination of that divorce, when it was all over and done with, well, Walter Radford walked into the attorney's office of his ex-wife and shot and killed the attorney. He then went home and shot himself. Well, what do we learn from this? One thing we learned from this is that divorces are exceptionally emotional. Many people know that already. People get very upset, and you find sane, reasonable people suddenly spending $60,000 in attorney's fees fighting over Christmas ornaments. It happens. And in terms of the practice of law, it's generally considered the most dangerous area of law in which to practice is in domestic relations when you're dealing with divorce, because people get absolutely, for all intents and purposes, out of control. Well, that's what happened in this situation. Are there alternatives? Yes, there are alternatives. One thing you can do if you're considering divorce is think about a do-it-yourself divorce. Forms are available. You can go to the internet. Nolo Press and a number of other people do provide various kits that allow you to engage in a do-it-yourself divorce. But basically, a do-it-yourself divorce doesn't work real well if you have been married more than 3 years, if you have children, or if you have any degree of property. But if you haven't been married very long, if you don't have kids, and if you don't have any property to speak of, well, then a do-it-yourself divorce can work out very well. Second approach you can use is what's referred to as a mediated divorce. And in mediation, the two parties, husband and wife, come together, and they can either be represented by attorneys, not represented by attorneys, but they go to a mediator. The mediator then attempts to bring the parties together with regard to what kind of agreement's going to be made with the property and what kind of agreement's going to be made with the children, visitation, things of that nature. The only problem with the mediation is generally if one party is very dominant and the other party is somewhat submissive, the dominant party generally will control that mediation, and it isn't always going to be a fair and equitable division. And also, if things get out of sorts, well, the parties can walk away and the money spent on the mediation has basically been down the drain. But in some instances, a mediation can work. It will work if the parties basically have said, look, we're over and done with, we're going to work this out in the best way possible. And one of the benefits of doing a mediation most often is that visitation with the kids works out better, and the kids basically aren't as traumatized by the whole divorce. Another aspect that can be used, number 3, is what's referred to as a collaborative divorce. In a collaborative divorce, each party hires an attorney. Those attorneys are trained in collaborative divorces. They sign an agreement, and they then attempt, through the attorneys, to work out the various details of their divorce. Again, dealing with children, child custody, dealing with property. That is an approach that many times works well because there are two more or less neutral people, because the attorneys are each hired to represent their clients, but the attorneys work it out. The clients don't have to see each other, the clients don't have to deal with each other, and all of that emotion doesn't have to take place. That can go forward and generally can work pretty well, provided there is not a complex financial situation or a whole lot of money at stake, a whole lot of assets at stake. And finally, you can always go with a traditional litigated divorce. And that's the way it's commonly done. In a litigated divorce, well, each party is represented by an attorney. You go to court and you work things out. Hopefully you work things out. One thing that's interesting to me is that some studies have indicated that in 80% of the divorces, only one person wants to divorce. So right off the bat, you've got an adversarial situation, and that's what you really have when you're going to court. Of course, when you go forward on an adversarial situation, as I say, tempers flare, and you wind up with this very bad news situation, such as we saw there in Georgia involving Walter and Cindy Radford. Okay, bring you this case. We bring you cases every week so you understand how the law works. I'm David Allen.